For weeks, a wealthy and powerful father was consumed by a dark suspicion within his own home. Disguised as a gardener, he secretly returns to uncover what lies behind his new wife's smiles. Then he witnesses the horror, his children being mistreated while a brave nanny tries to protect them. But on the day the mask falls before everyone, the truth explodes like a bomb, and no one is left unscathed. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. The sun was setting over the green hills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, painting the rooftops of the Miller Mansion in Aspen Heights with gold. That imposing residence, with its meticulously kept gardens and large glass windows, was known by everyone in Aspen Heights as the symbol of Robert Miller's business success, owner of one of the largest hotel chains in the United States. The cold mountain breeze carried the scent of pine trees, but inside the mansion, the atmosphere was heavy. Robert, sitting in his office of noble wood, contemplated the photos of his 2 children on the desk. His tired eyes reflected a restlessness that hadn't left him for weeks. Ever since he married Christine Vance, a model and socialite known in New York City magazines, something had profoundly changed in the family dynamic. "Sir, dinner is served," announced Mrs. Eleanor, the housekeeper who had worked for the family for over 20 years. Robert sighed. "How are the children today, Eleanor?" The grey-haired woman hesitated, averting her gaze. "Quiet as ever, boss. Christine is already at the table with them." That hesitation did not go unnoticed. It was another sign among many others that fueled his suspicions. He stood up and walked slowly to the large dining room, where the silence was broken only by the clinking of cutlery. At the opposite head of the table, Christine, impeccably dressed in a blue silk ensemble, maintained an upright posture and an artificial smile. Beside her, Beatrice, 8, and Luke, 5, kept their eyes fixed on their plates, barely touching their food. "Good evening, family," Robert said, forcing a cheerful tone. "Daddy!" Luke's eyes lit up for an instant, but soon dimmed again when the boy glanced at his stepmother. "Luke, what did we discuss about speaking at the table?" Christine's melodious voice carried a note of warning that made the little boy shrink his shoulders. Robert frowned. "Since when can't the children greet me, Christine?" "I'm just teaching good manners, dear. Children need to learn etiquette." The businessman observed how Beatrice maintained such a rigid posture that she looked like a small statue. Her eyes, once so lively and bright like those of her deceased mother, now seemed dull. Something was profoundly wrong, and that feeling gnawed at his heart every day. After the silent dinner, Robert went to the children's room to say goodnight. He found Felicity Olson, the young nanny hired a few months ago, tidying Luke's sheets. "How are they, Felicity?" he asked in a low voice, after making sure Christine wasn't around. The young woman in her 20s, with her curly hair pulled back in a simple bun, hesitated before answering. "They're fine, Mr. Miller." "The truth, please," he insisted, noticing the nervousness in her voice. Felicity's brown eyes met his, revealing genuine concern. "You need to observe more. That's all I can say." Those words were like a punch to the gut. For weeks he had ignored the signs, convincing himself that it was just the adjustment period to the new family. But the transformation in his children was undeniable. The sparkle had disappeared from their eyes. The laughter that once echoed through the mansion's corridors had ceased, replaced by an unsettling silence. That night, while Christine slept beside him, Robert remained awake, mentally replaying everything that had been happening since the wedding 6 months ago. At first, she seemed perfect, charming, attentive to the children, a New York City socialite who promised to fill the void left by his first wife Claire's death. But little by little, the mask began to fall. The next morning during breakfast, Robert announced, "I need to travel to New York City for a few weeks. The chain is expanding internationally and I need to negotiate personally." Christine smiled, placing her coffee cup on the table with studied delicacy. "How long will you be away, dear?" "Perhaps a month. I'm not sure." He didn't miss the flicker of satisfaction that passed through her eyes. "Don't worry about anything here. I'll take care of everything in your absence." Robert kissed his children, noticing how Luke clung to him longer than usual, as if silently pleading for him not to go. The father's heart ached, but his plan was already set. 3 days later, in his apartment in New York City, Robert received a visit from George Sampson, his childhood friend and private investigator. "Are you sure about this, Robert? Wouldn't it be easier to install cameras?" "No, George. I need to see for myself. Cameras can be discovered, and if my suspicion is correct, Christine is too smart to expose herself like that." "And what if you're wrong? What if it's just the imagination of an overprotective father?" Robert ran a hand through the graying hair at his temples. "Then I'll sleep better, knowing my children are well. But my instinct has never failed me in business, and it's not failing me now as a father." George sighed, handing him an envelope. "It's all here. Fake documents in the name of Samuel Stone, a former gardener for 5-star hotels. The fake beard and contact lenses will change your appearance quite a bit. Most importantly, no one in the house can know, not even your housekeeper." A week later, a simple-looking man with a grey beard and thick-rimmed glasses presented himself at the gates of the Miller mansion. His rural accent and worn clothes bore no resemblance to the elegant businessman everyone knew. "Good morning, my name is Samuel. I heard you need help in the garden." Mrs. Eleanor, who had never seen her boss in disguise, examined him with suspicion. "Who told you that?" "Neil from the flower shop. He said the gardener here is on leave because of his back." The housekeeper nodded. Indeed, the regular gardener was off due to health issues. "I'll speak with the madam. Wait here." Minutes later, Samuel stood before Christine, who observed him with superiority from her expensive heels. He kept his eyes down, perfectly playing the role of a humble man seeking work. "Do you know about plants? This garden costs a fortune to maintain," she said, crossing her arms. "Yes, madam. I've worked in many luxury hotels. I can show you what I know." Christine examined him once more, visibly bored with the conversation. "All right, we'll test you for a few days, but stay away from the children and the main house. And payment will be daily." Samuel nodded gratefully. "Thank you very much, madam. You won't regret it." As he was led by Mrs. Eleanor to the small room at the back of the property, used by temporary staff, the fake gardener tried to control his anxiety. The first part of the plan had worked. Now camouflaged as an invisible employee in the eyes of high society, he could finally discover what was happening to his children when he wasn't present. "Your hours are from 7 to 5, with an hour for lunch," Eleanor explained. "Lunch is served in the back kitchen. Do not enter the main house unless called." "Understood, Mrs. Eleanor. I'll start early tomorrow." That night, lying on the simple bed in the back room, Robert felt a tightness in his chest. He was so close yet so far from his children. Through the window, he could see the lights of their room going out on the second floor of the mansion. "Hold on, my little ones," he whispered to himself. "Daddy is here now." The first week, as Samuel was revealing for Robert, working in the mansion gardens, he had a privileged view of several windows in the house, including the living room and kitchen. From a distance, he observed Christine's behavior when she thought no one was watching. On Wednesday morning, while pruning the bushes near the dining room window, Robert saw Beatrice accidentally spill a glass of juice. Christine's reaction was immediate and disproportionate. "You clumsy girl," her voice, normally controlled and melodious, turned into a furious hiss. "Clean that up right now. How can you be so useless?" Little Beatrice, trembling, grabbed a napkin and began to wipe the table with shaky hands. A silent tear ran down her face. "And stop crying. Your father spoiled you too much. In my house, we don't tolerate such childish behavior." Robert squeezed the pruning shears so hard his fingers ached. He took a deep breath, suppressing the urge to storm into the house and confront Christine. "Not yet," he muttered to himself. "I need more." The same day in the afternoon, he saw Felicity, the nanny, taking the children to play in the backyard, away from their stepmother's watchful eyes. The young woman spread a towel on the grass and took some hidden toys from her bag. "Look what I brought, Luke," she said with a gentle smile, handing the boy a small red car. The boy's eyes lit up. "My car. Stepmother Christine said she threw it away." "Shh," Felicity put her finger to her lips. "I saved it. But it's our secret, right?" Luke nodded, hugging the toy to his chest. Beside him, Beatrice was leafing through a storybook that the nanny had also brought. Robert, pretending to work on the nearby hedge, felt a lump in his throat. The nanny was risking her job to bring some comfort to his children. Meanwhile, he, the father, had been unable to perceive their suffering before he left. "Say excuse me," he said, cautiously approaching the group. "I didn't mean to disturb, but I thought the children might like this." In his hands, calloused from the work of the past few days, he offered 2 small wooden sculptures he had carved during the night, a little horse for Luke and a butterfly for Beatrice. Felicity looked at him with initial suspicion, but her gaze softened when she saw the handmade toys. "How lovely, Mr. Samuel, isn't it? Children, what do you say?" "Thank you," Luke replied shyly, while Beatrice merely accepted the butterfly with a small smile, the first Robert had seen on her face in weeks. "You're welcome. My father taught me to carve when I was little like you," he said, maintaining his rural accent. "If you allow, miss, I can make more later." "Of course," Felicity replied. "But—" She looked nervously at the house. "Perhaps it's best not to mention it to Christine." "I understand perfectly," Samuel replied, exchanging a knowing look with the nanny. That brief moment connected the 3 adults in a silent alliance in favor of the children. Robert returned to work with a slightly lighter heart, knowing that his children had at least one protector in that house. The next morning, Samuel was watering the plants when he heard screams coming from Beatrice's room on the 2nd floor. The window was ajar, and Christine's voice echoed clearly. "I've told you 1,000 times that the bed needs to be made as soon as you wake up. Look at this mess." "Sorry, stepmother Christine." Beatrice's voice was almost inaudible. "I'm not your mother," the sharp reply came. "Your mother is dead. I'm your stepmother, and you will respect me or you will regret it. Now make that bed properly." Robert froze, the hose still in his hands, water running onto the lawn. The cruelty of the words hit him like a physical blow. How could that woman speak like that to a child who had lost her mother? At that moment, Felicity came running up the internal staircase. "Christine, Mrs. Valerie is on the phone. She said it's urgent about the charity event." "I'll take it," Christine replied, immediately changing her tone to something sweet and controlled. "Beatrice, finish that before I come back." As soon as Christine left the room, Felicity quickly entered and helped the girl make the bed. "It's going to be okay," Robert heard her whisper. "I'm here with you." Outside, the fake gardener pulled a small recorder from the pouch hidden under his shirt, marking the date and time of the incident he had just witnessed. This was not the first recording he had made, and certainly would not be the last. At night, alone in his back room, Robert listened to the recordings collected during the day and made detailed notes in a notebook. With each page filled, his determination grew. It wasn't just a matter of jealousy or normal family disagreements. It was systematic psychological abuse. The special cell phone George had given him vibrated. It was an encrypted message from his friend. "How are things? Do you have enough yet?" Robert quickly typed, "Worse than I imagined, but I need more proof, and witnesses other than myself." The next day during breakfast he observed the mansion from the service area, where he had coffee with the other employees. Christine emerged elegantly dressed, getting into her red convertible. "She's going shopping in New York City," Mrs. Eleanor commented. "Only comes back at night. She always does that when the boss is traveling." "Are the children going too?" Samuel asked casually. "No," the housekeeper replied with a sigh. "They stay with Felicity. Christine says children get in the way of shopping." As Christine's car disappeared through the gate, the mansion seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The children came down for breakfast in the kitchen, something that Robert realized only happened in their stepmother's absence. "Can I have pancakes today, Mrs. Eleanor?" Luke asked, his eyes shining with hope. "Of course, darling. I'll make them just the way you like, with chocolate syrup." Beatrice helped set the table, moving with a lightness. She didn't show when Christine was around. Robert, observing from the window while pretending to examine a plant, felt the painful contrast between these 2 worlds his children lived in. Felicity appeared in the kitchen, dressed for the day. "Good morning, everyone. What's our plan for today?" "Can we go to the lake?" Beatrice asked, showing some enthusiasm for the first time in weeks. The nanny exchanged glances with Mrs. Eleanor, who nodded discreetly. Yes, we can, but we'll be back before lunch and we'll take snacks. Later, Samuel was working near the small lake at the back of the property when he saw the group approaching. Luke ran ahead, finally looking like a normal child, while Beatrice walked hand in hand with Felicity. "Mr. Samuel," Luke waved excitedly, "look what I found." He showed a small turtle he had found on the lake's edge. "How lovely," the fake gardener replied, crouching down to get a better look. "Did you know turtles can live for over 100 years? Really?" The boy's eyes widened. "Yes, they are very wise and strong animals." He looked briefly at Felicity before continuing. "Even when life gets tough, they have a shell to protect themselves and the patience to wait for better times." Felicity noticed the message between the lines and observed Samuel more closely. There was something familiar about that man, something in his eyes when he looked at the children. "Do you have children, Mr. Samuel?" she asked suddenly. The question caught him by surprise. "Yes, I do, 2. A boy and a girl." "And where are they?" "Away from me for now," he replied, a touch of emotion escaping from behind his disguise. "But I'm working to get back to them soon." That exchange of glances awakened a curiosity in Felicity that would not leave her in the following days. There was much more to that simple gardener than met the eye. As evening fell, when Robert returned from work to his back room, he found Felicity waiting for him on the path, among the shadows of the trees. "I need to talk to you," she said in a low voice, "about the children." His heart raced. Had she discovered his identity? "Of course, Miss Felicity. Has something happened?" "It's about Christine," she hesitated, looking around to make sure they were alone. "What you've seen and what you've heard while working near the house—" "I see and hear many things," he replied cautiously. "Then you know it's not right," she continued, her eyes welling up. "Those children are suffering. Luke isn't sleeping properly. He has nightmares. Beatrice has stopped eating properly. I'm worried, very worried." Robert felt a mixture of gratitude and guilt seeing the young woman's genuine care for his children. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because—" she hesitated again. "I think you care. I've seen how you look at them. And maybe you can help me protect them until their father returns from his trip." That moment almost broke his resolve to maintain the disguise. He wanted to reveal himself, to say that their father was already there, ready to defend his children. But he couldn't. Not yet. "I'll do what I can," he promised. "And you're not alone in this concern." When Felicity walked away, Robert took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. The situation was worse than he imagined, and time to act was running out. What he needed now was an event, a moment when he could expose Christine in front of reliable witnesses, so she could never deny her actions or manipulate the narrative afterward. That night, listening to his recordings again, an idea began to form in his mind. The following Saturday, Christine was hosting a charity luncheon for her foundation, an event full of socialites and journalists, the perfect stage for the revelation he was planning. The Friday before the big charity event at the Miller Mansion brought a frenzy of activity. Extra staff were hired for the organization, catering and decoration companies transformed the gardens and halls, and Christine moved through the property like a queen, supervising every detail with a critical and relentless eye. "These flowers are completely wrong," she shouted at the decorator, a middle-aged woman who was trying to maintain her composure. "I asked for white orchids, not these drab things." "Mrs. Miller, those are the Phalaenopsis orchids you requested," the professional replied patiently. "They're yellowed. Replace them all, and the table arrangements are too small. I want something impressive, understood?" Samuel, who was trimming the grass near the discussion, observed everything discreetly. Christine's behavior with the staff followed the same pattern of arrogance and cruelty she showed the children, only in a slightly more restrained tone, because they were adults who could talk back. Throughout the day, Beatrice and Luke were kept in their rooms, away from the hustle and bustle. Christine had given explicit orders for them not to disrupt the preparations. Only in the late afternoon, when the main decoration was almost finished, did she send for them. "Tomorrow you will represent this family," she said coldly to the children, who stood before her in the living room. "I want impeccable behavior, polite smiles, short and precise answers when someone speaks to you. No running around, no noise, no complaints, understood? Yes, stepmother Christine, they replied in unison, their little eyes downcast. Beatrice, you will wear the blue dress I bought. Luke, the linen suit. If either of you gets dirty, tears something, or creates any problems. She let the threat hang in the air, not needing to complete it for the children to understand. After Christine left to take a call, Felicity, who had been watching the scene from the doorway, approached and hugged the children. It's going to be all right, she whispered. I'll be with you the whole time. Promise? Luke asked, clinging to the nanny's hand. I promise. She looked at Beatrice, who seemed particularly tense. What is it, Bea? The girl hesitated before answering. What if Daddy never comes back? The question hit Robert, who was passing outside the window at that exact moment. His heart clenched, hearing the fear in his daughter's voice. Felicity, unaware that the father was so close, replied with conviction, Your daddy will come back, Bea. He loves you more than anything in the world. But what if he likes stepmother Christine more than us? The girl insisted, revealing the fear that consumed her. That will never happen, Felicity assured. A true father's love for his children is forever. Robert moved away from the window, his eyes welling up. The plan he had initially drawn up now seemed even more urgent. His children were not only suffering physical and emotional abuse, but beginning to doubt his love for them. This was unacceptable. That night, as the mansion finally quieted after the long day of preparations, Samuel did something risky. He left his back room and walked silently to the children's bedroom. The house was silent. Christine had gone out to dinner with some guests who were already in town for the event. He found Felicity sitting between the two beds, reading a story to the children. Seeing him at the door, she paused, surprised. Excuse the intrusion, he said in a low voice. I made some more toys for the children and thought I'd bring them before they went to sleep. Luke sat up in bed, excited, while Beatrice observed the visitor with curiosity. Felicity, after a moment of hesitation, motioned for him to come in, just for a few minutes. Christine could return at any moment. Samuel entered and handed over the small wooden toys, a little boat for Luke and a tiny house for Beatrice. The children received the gifts with shy smiles. You make very beautiful toys, Beatrice commented, examining the little house carefully. Thank you. It's a family talent, he replied, sitting on the edge of his daughter's bed. My father taught me, and I taught my son. Does your son know how to make toys too? Luke asked, interested. Not yet, but one day he will learn. Just like you can learn if you want. The boy smiled, showing genuine enthusiasm for the first time. Can you teach me? The innocent request almost broke Robert's composure. Of course I can, he replied, his voice slightly choked. One day. Felicity watched the interaction closely, noting the gardener's barely contained emotion. His eyes revealed an affection for the little ones that went far beyond a stranger's normal sympathy. Time for bed, children, she finally said. Tomorrow will be a long day. Samuel stood up, aware of the nanny's appraising gaze. Good night, little ones. Dream beautiful dreams. As he turned to leave, Beatrice said something that froze him. You have eyes like my daddy's. Robert turned slowly. Do I? The girl nodded. He looks at us the same way. That's quite a compliment, he replied, controlling himself not to reveal his identity at that moment. Your father must be a lucky man having children like you. In the hallway, Felicity followed him, closing the children's bedroom door behind her. Who are you, really? She asked, in a low but firm voice. You're not just a gardener, am I right? Robert hesitated. Revealing himself to Felicity could be risky, but it could also secure a crucial ally for his plan. Tomorrow you will know the whole truth, he finally replied. I only ask that you trust me until then. I am here to protect those children just like you. Before she could insist, they heard the sound of Christine's car arriving. Samuel quickly moved away, disappearing down the service stairs, leaving Felicity with more questions than answers. The big day finally arrived. From dawn, the mansion buzzed with activity. Catering trucks, service staff, musicians, and the final adjustments to the decor. Christine's charity event was, in reality, a large public relations operation, a chance to portray herself as the perfect wife, the loving stepmother, and the social benefactor. Robert, in his role as gardener, kept busy with minor adjustments to the outdoor floral arrangements, strategically positioned to observe the movements. In the pocket of his simple shirt, the small recorder was on, and on his cell phone he had sent a coded message to George. "Today's the day. Be prepared to intervene if necessary." Around 10 in the morning, the first guests began to arrive. Socialites, businessmen, local politicians and a few journalists invited to cover the charity event. Christine received them at the main entrance, stunning in an emerald green silk dress, the perfect image of the sophisticated hostess. At 11 o'clock she sent for the children. Beatrice and Luke came down the stairs hand in hand with Felicity, impeccably, dressed as small versions of wealthy adults. The nanny had carefully styled Beatrice's hair and helped Luke adjust the bow tie that completed his outfit. "Come, my darlings," Christine called sweetly, extending her arms for the cameras that recorded her perfect family. For the photographers, she was the image of the loving stepmother. "I want to introduce you to all our friends." The children obeyed, approaching with hesitant steps. Christine hugged them for the photos, smiling radiantly, while whispering through gritted teeth, "Smile, and don't even think about making a scene." Felicity watched everything closely, tense. Her gaze briefly met Samuel's, who was working trimming some flowers near the reception area. Something in his expression reassured her. There was a determination there, a certainty that this charade would not last much longer. Lunch was served on the large covered terrace, decorated with white flowers and crystals that reflected the mountain sunlight. 50 important guests sat at round tables, while Christine spoke about the importance of her foundation to help needy children. "As a stepmother," she said with an emotional voice, "I learned that every child deserves love, attention, and opportunities. That's why I created the Christine Vance Foundation, to extend that love to so many other children." Beatrice and Luke sat at the main table, next to their stepmother, under the watchful eyes of cameras and guests. Felicity stood, discreetly positioned behind them, ready to intervene if necessary. During dessert, a small accident changed the course of events. Luke, trying to reach his chocolate mousse glass, accidentally knocked over a glass of water, which shattered on the marble floor with a loud crash. The silence was instant. All eyes turned to the main table. The boy's face paled with terror, his eyes fixed on Christine, who had frozen mid-conversation, with an important guest. "Sorry," Luke whispered, almost inaudible, tears already welling in his eyes. Christine's face transformed for an instant, the mask of perfection giving way to an expression of contained fury. Her eyes gleamed with anger, and she instinctively raised her hand. It was at that moment that Felicity acted, quickly placing herself between the stepmother and the boy. "It was just an accident, Christine," she said loudly. "I'll clean it up in a flash." Christine's raised hand struck the nanny's face with a dry slap that echoed across the silent terrace. The guests gasped, shocked by the unexpected scene. "How dare you interrupt me?" Christine hissed, momentarily losing her composure. Felicity, with the red mark of her employer's fingers on her face, stood firm. "I will not allow you to hurt this child." Christine realized too late that all eyes were on her, including some phones discreetly recording the scene. She tried to recover, forcing a smile. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Felicity is exaggerating, as always. This kind of drama is why I'm considering firing her." "It was not a misunderstanding," Samuel's firm voice sounded from the terrace entrance. Everyone turned to look at the gardener, who had put his tools aside and was now walking slowly towards the main table. "Go back to your place," Christine ordered, "or you're fired too." "You can't fire anyone in this house anymore, Christine," he replied, his voice changing, losing the rural accent and gaining the firmness and authority everyone knew. "Because this house isn't yours." As he spoke, Samuel slowly removed his fake beard and glasses, revealing his true face. A collective murmur of astonishment swept through the terrace as guests recognized Robert Miller. "Daddy?" Beatrice's incredulous voice broke the silence. The terrace of the Miller mansion plunged into absolute silence. Waiters stopped with trays suspended in the air. Guests sat rigid in their chairs, and even the wind seemed to cease in the garden trees. At the center of this moment, frozen in time, were Robert and Christine, facing each other like two adversaries in a final duel. "This is absurd." Christine was the first to break the silence, her face oscillating between shock and fury. "What kind of sick joke is this, Robert?" He remained calm, advancing slowly across the terrace. "It's not a joke, it's the end of your charade." The children looked at their father with a mixture of confusion and hope. Luke was the first to react, running towards Robert and hugging his legs tightly. "Daddy, it was you all along?" Robert knelt, hugging his son. "Yes, my little one. Daddy was here, watching, protecting you." Beatrice remained paralyzed in her chair, as if fearing that it was all just a dream from which she would wake at any moment. Felicity, still with the slap mark on her face, approached the girl and gently encouraged her. "Go, Bea, it's your real daddy." The girl finally stood up and walked hesitantly to Robert, who now extended his free arm to receive her. When they finally embraced, several of the guests could not contain their emotion. Some photographers discreetly recorded every moment of that extraordinary scene. Christine, realizing she was rapidly losing control of the situation, tried to regain her composure. "Darling, can we talk privately? This is embarrassing for our guests." "There's nothing left for us to talk about privately," Robert replied, rising with the children still clinging to him. "Everything that needed to be said privately you've already said, to my children, to Felicity, to the staff. Now it's time for the truth to be known by everyone." He turned to the guests. "I apologize for the unexpected spectacle, but I felt you deserved to know the true Christine Vance. Not the philanthropist concerned with needy children, but the woman who terrorized my children when no one was looking." "This is defamation," Christine shouted, her face now completely disfigured by rage. "I'll sue you for this." Robert smiled calmly, taking the small recorder from his pocket. "Sue based on what? Your own words?" He pressed the play button, and Christine's voice filled the terrace. "Fear teaches better than love. Spoiled children don't learn respect. In my house you obey or suffer the consequences." Christine moved to try to grab the device, but Felicity stepped in front. "I have many more recordings like this," Robert continued, "and witnesses. Mrs. Eleanor, Felicity, even some temporary staff who have been here in the last few weeks noticed your behavior." The guests began to murmur among themselves, many already standing, ready to leave the event. Some journalists furiously took notes, while others discreetly recorded everything on their phones. "You don't believe him, do you?" Christine looked around, seeking support among the guests, but finding only looks of disapproval or avoidance. "It was all a misunderstanding. I'm just trying to educate these children after their mother died. They need discipline." "Discipline does not come from fear, Christine," Robert replied, "and you just showed everyone who you really are by assaulting Felicity in front of 50 witnesses." Socialite Valerie, who had previously considered herself a close friend of Christine's, stood up. "I'm shocked, Christine. I knew Claire, the mother of these children, and she raised them with so much love. To see how you treated them." She shook her head and addressed Robert. "If you need any testimony, count on me." Other guests began to speak up, some revealing that they had already noticed worrying signs, but never imagined the extent of the situation. The mayor of Aspen Heights, who was present, approached Robert. "Mr. Miller, I am deeply sorry. If there's anything I can do..." "Thank you, Mayor. I only ask that this story serves so that other similar cases do not go unnoticed." Christine, seeing that she was losing all allies, suddenly changed tactics. Tears welled in her eyes and she fell into a nearby chair, sobbing theatrically. "I only wanted the best. For this family," she cried. "Perhaps I was too strict, but it was out of love. Robert, you can't do this to me, destroy everything we've built." Robert looked at her with a mixture of pity and contempt. "We built nothing, Christine. You destroyed what was most precious in this house, the safety and happiness of my children. Now please remove yourself from my property." "You can't kick me out like this. I'm your wife." "Not for long," he replied calmly, pulling another paper from his pocket. My lawyer has already prepared all the divorce documents, considering the evidence I have of your mistreatment of the children. I doubt any judge will rule in your favor. 2 security guards had already been called and waited discreetly at the terrace entrance. Robert signaled, and they approached. Please, escort the lady to her room to collect her personal belongings. Then take her to the gate. Christine jumped up, her face now a mask of pure hatred. You'll regret this, Robert Miller. No one does this to me and gets away with it. She looked at the children angrily. And you too, you ungrateful wretches, after everything I've done, that idiotic nanny filled your heads against me. Robert stepped forward, shielding his children with his body. Enough, Christine. Leave with what little dignity you have left. The security guards approached, indicating the way into the house. Christine hesitated, looking around one last time, seeking some support she did not find. Finally, with her chin raised in a last gesture of wounded pride, she marched into the mansion, her heels furiously clacking against the marble floor. The guests began to disperse, many approaching Robert to express solidarity, or simply to say embarrassed goodbyes. Robert thanked everyone for their understanding, apologizing for the abrupt end of the event. When the terrace finally emptied, leaving only the family and a few staff, Robert knelt before his children. "Forgive me for not realizing sooner," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "for bringing this person into our lives." Luke hugged his father's neck tightly. "You came back, Daddy. That's all that matters." Beatrice, always more reserved, touched her father's face with her small hands. "Why did you dress up as a gardener?" Robert smiled through tears. "Because I needed to discover the truth. I felt something was wrong, but I didn't know exactly what. It was the only way I found to protect you." He turned to Felicity, who watched the scene with emotion. "And you, Felicity. I don't even have words to thank you. You protected my children when I couldn't." The nanny touched her face, still red from the slap. "I only did what any decent person would do, Mr. Miller." "No," Robert shook his head. "You did much more. You risked your job, your well-being. You were the light they needed in the darkness." Mrs. Eleanor approached, her eyes welling up. "Boss, I should have said something, noticed sooner. Don't blame yourself, Eleanor. Christine fooled all of us with her mask of perfection." Robert stood up, still holding his children's hands. "Now we need to rebuild, make this house a home again." Outside the mansion, Christine's car sped off violently, scattering gravel on the driveway. Some reporters who had remained tried to follow her, but she quickly disappeared down the winding mountain road. Inside the house, Robert instructed the staff to formally cancel the event and help reorganize the space. Meanwhile, he took the children and Felicity to the library, a cozy place that had always been the family's refuge in happy times. "What now, Daddy?" Beatrice asked, sitting on the large leather sofa. "Now we will heal the wounds and start over," Robert replied, sitting between his children. "One day at a time." Luke looked up, uncertain. "She's not coming back, is she?" "No, my son. She will never hurt you again." Felicity remained standing, suddenly feeling out of place in that intimate family moment. "I think I'll help Mrs. Eleanor with dinner preparations," she said, turning to leave. "Felicity," Robert called. "Please stay. You're part of this family now." The young woman hesitated, touched by the recognition. "Thank you, Mr. Miller." "Robert," he corrected her. "After everything we've been through, I think we can drop the formalities." A shy smile appeared on the nanny's lips as she sat in a nearby armchair. "Robert," she repeated softly. Upstairs, meanwhile, security guards supervised Christine as she threw clothes and jewelry into expensive suitcases. Her face was contorted in an expression of hatred, and occasionally she would pick up some decorative object and hurl it against the wall in fits of rage. "He thinks it's over," she muttered to herself as she slammed a suitcase shut. "But this is just the beginning." Meanwhile, in the mansion's office, George Sampson, Robert's investigator and friend, received a phone call. "Yes, everything is under control here," he informed, "but keep an eye on her. I have a feeling Christine Vance isn't the type of woman who accepts defeat easily." Later that night, with the children finally sleeping peacefully in their rooms, Robert contemplated the starry mountain sky from the balcony. Felicity approached, bringing 2 cups of tea. "I thought you might want this," she said, offering one of the cups. Thank you. He accepted the tea, his eyes still fixed on the stars. You know, during all these weeks in disguise, observing from afar, the thing that gave me the most hope was seeing you with my children. Felicity blushed slightly. I just did what I could. They are wonderful children. They are, Robert agreed. And now they have a long journey ahead to overcome this trauma. Children are surprisingly resilient, she said, leaning on the balcony railing beside him. With love and security, they will flourish again. Robert looked at her, seeing much more than just the nanny he had hired months ago. He saw a courageous woman, with unwavering principles and a genuine heart. "Or will you stay with us?" he asked, his voice carrying a note of hope that went beyond concern for his children. Felicity smiled, her eyes reflecting the sparkle of the mountain stars. "For as long as you need me." As they shared that moment of peace after the storm, neither of them noticed the dark car parked in the distance on the road, from where Christine observed the mansion with binoculars, her face a mask of grim determination. "Enjoy your momentary victory, Robert," she whispered to the wind, "because the war has only just begun." 3 weeks passed since the confrontation that forever changed life in the Miller mansion. It was a Sunday morning, and the house breathed a different atmosphere. Open windows let in the fresh mountain breeze. Children's laughter echoed through the previously silent corridors, and the aroma of freshly baked chocolate cake filled the kitchen. Robert, sitting at the balcony table with a cup of coffee, watched Beatrice and Luke playing in the garden. The change in the children was visible day by day. Smiles returned more often. Frightened glances gave way to a renewed curiosity about the world, and little by little, the emotional wounds began to heal. "They're getting better," Felicity said, approaching with a pitcher of orange juice. "Yesterday, for the first time, Luke slept through the night without nightmares." Robert smiled, observing how the young woman moved naturally through the space, as if she had always been a part of that family. "And Beatrice has started drawing again. I found several colorful drawings in her notebook, no longer those dark strokes from before." Felicity sat in the chair next to him, pouring juice for both of them. "The psychologist said their progress is remarkable. Dr. Martha Caldwell was impressed with the children's resilience." After the incident, Robert had immediately sought professional help for his children. Dr. Martha Caldwell, a respected child psychologist from New York City, came to the mansion 3 times a week for sessions with the children, helping them process the trauma they had experienced. "They have you," Robert replied, his eyes meeting Felicity's with a gaze that no longer disguised his admiration. "And they had you in the most difficult moments." The young woman blushed slightly. In recent weeks, the relationship between the two had evolved from initial gratitude to something deeper and more complex. The closeness, forged during the days he disguised himself as a gardener, combined with mutual respect and a shared love for the children, created a bond that neither knew exactly how to define or how to act upon. "I have a surprise for everyone later," Robert said, changing the subject. "I thought of a picnic at the waterfall. The children used to love going there before." Before he could finish the sentence, George Sampson appeared on the balcony. The private investigator, who had become a constant presence at the mansion since the incident, wore a worried expression. "Robert, can we talk privately?" Felicity understood the message and stood up. "I'll go check on the children." As soon as she walked away, George sat down, placing a folder on the table. "I have news about Christine." Robert sighed. The mention of that name still provoked a mixture of anger and apprehension. What is she doing now? Moving. After 3 weeks virtually secluded in that New York City flat, she started making contacts. George opened the folder, showing some photos. "She met with this man twice in the last week." Robert examined the photograph. A middle-aged man, elegantly dressed, talking with Christine in a luxury restaurant. "Who is he?" "Arthur Maxwell, a lawyer specializing in property disputes and child custody. He has a reputation for being ruthless and, let's say, creative with evidence." "Is she going to try to fight for custody?" Robert's incredulity was evident in his voice. "After everything she did, with all the evidence we have?" George closed the folder with a heavy sigh. "Robert, you know Christine. She's not the type to accept losing. The divorce will hit not only her pride, but also her finances. The prenuptial agreement you signed is quite clear. In case of proven harmful behavior, she leaves with practically nothing. And she deserves exactly that. Agreed. But it seems she's preparing an alternative narrative. George hesitated before continuing. My contacts say she's trying to paint a picture of you as a controlling, obsessive husband who fabricated evidence against her for not accepting her disciplining the children. Robert slammed his fist on the table, making the cups rattle. That's absurd. It is, but we're talking about Christine. She's extremely persuasive and has connections in the press. I've already noticed some reporters circling, asking questions about your marriage dynamic. The businessman ran a hand through, his hair feeling the weight of the situation. When he expelled Christine, he thought the nightmare was over, but apparently it was just the beginning of a new battle. What do you suggest we do? For now, maintain heightened security. We've reinforced the property's security and I'm monitoring her movements. I also suggest you prepare Felicity and the children for possible attempts at contact. Do you think she would try to approach the children? George looked at his friend seriously. I think Christine will try anything not to come out as the villain in this story. And for her, the ends always justify the means. After George left, Robert remained on the balcony, absorbed in dark thoughts. He was so concentrated that he didn't notice Felicity approaching. Bad news? She asked, noticing the tense expression on his face. Robert hesitated. He didn't want to burden her, but he also knew they needed to be united and alert. Christine is planning something. George suspects she'll try to contest the divorce and possibly even fight for child custody. Felicity's face paled. She can't, after everything she did. We know that, but she'll try to create a different narrative. And we need to... So be prepared. Felicity sat down again, determination replacing the initial shock. What can I do to help? Stay alert. If you notice any strange movements, unknown people observing the house or trying to talk to the children, let me know immediately. She nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. The children are finally starting to feel safe again. We can't let her destroy that. We won't, Robert assured, covering her hand with his in an instinctive gesture of connection. The touch, though brief, sent a wave of warmth up Felicity's arm, making her gently withdraw her hand, averting her gaze. The tension between them was palpable, a mix of attraction and hesitation, of deep feelings constrained by complicated circumstances. We should focus on the children now, she said, standing up. Are we still going to the picnic you mentioned? Of course, Robert replied, also standing. I won't let Christine continue to control our lives with fear. The picnic at the waterfall proved to be exactly what the family needed. The spot, a small waterfall in a secluded area of the property, surrounded by native forest, was Claire, Robert's late wife's favorite retreat, and she used to bring the children there frequently. Luke ran among the trees, chasing butterflies, while Beatrice, sitting on the rocks near the water, drew in her new notebook. Robert and Felicity arranged the blanket and the picnic basket that Mrs. Eleanor had lovingly prepared. "Daddy, look!" Luke shouted, pointing to a toucan perched on a nearby branch. The colourful bird observed the group with curiosity. "It's a green-billed toucan," Robert explained, approaching his son. "They're rare to see so close." "Mummy showed me one once," the boy said, his voice dropping slightly as he mentioned his mother. "She said they bring good luck." Robert hugged his son's shoulders. "Your mother was right, and I bet she's very happy seeing you remember the things she taught." Beatrice approached, holding her notebook. "I drew our family," she said shyly, showing the colourful drawing. Robert looked at the paper, feeling a lump in his throat. The girl had drawn 4 figures holding hands, clearly representing herself, Luke, her father, and Felicity, under a large yellow sun. In the corner of the drawing, a winged figure hovered above them, with a smile on its face. "Who is this one here?" he asked, pointing to the winged figure, although he already suspected the answer. "It's Mommy," Beatrice replied. "Mrs. Eleanor says she became an angel and watches over us from above." Robert hugged his daughter, fighting back tears. "It's a beautiful drawing, my princess." Felicity watched the scene from a distance, deeply touched. When Beatrice turned and showed her the drawing, pointing specifically to the figure representing her, the nanny felt simultaneously honored and uncomfortable. She was being incorporated into the children's family in a way she hadn't anticipated when she took the job months ago. The outdoor lunch passed peacefully, with the children showing more appetite and joy than in previous weeks. After the meal, Robert suggested a walk to a small clearing further on, where wildflowers grew. "Mommy loved those purple flowers," Beatrice commented as they walked. "She used to make wreaths for us to wear on our heads." "Wreaths of purple blossoms and trumpet trees," Robert recalled with a nostalgic smile. "Your mother knew the name of all the plants in the region." "Can you make them too, Nanda?" Luke asked, using the affectionate nickname he had created for Felicity. The young woman smiled. "I never learned, but I'd love for you to teach me." The afternoon passed quickly, filled with simple moments of reconnection and healing. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the small family gathered their belongings and began the walk back to the house. As they approached the mansion, Robert noticed an unfamiliar car parked near the main gate. Immediately alert, he signaled for Felicity to hold the children. "Go around the back way," he instructed in a low voice. "Use the kitchen entrance, I'll see who it is." Felicity nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. "Come on, children. Let's race to the kitchen to see who gets there first." While the nanny distracted the children, leading them down an alternative path, Robert cautiously approached the vehicle. It was a van with the logo of a regional television station. Near the gate, a reporter and a cameraman seemed to be discussing how to gain access to the property. "Can I help you?" Robert asked, approaching with a neutral expression, though internally he was furious at the intrusion. The reporter turned, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. "Mr. Miller, how lucky to find you. I'm Patricia Clark, from Channels 8. We'd like to ask some questions about recent events involving your family." "I have nothing to declare," he replied firmly, "and I would appreciate it if you respected our privacy." "But Mr. Miller," the reporter insisted, "your ex-wife Christine Vance gave an exclusive interview that will air tomorrow. She makes very serious statements about you and what really happened in that mansion. Wouldn't you like to give your side?" Robert felt his blood run cold. So this was what Christine was planning, to use the media to rebuild her image and destroy his. "As I said, I have no comment. And now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to my children." "Is it true that you are in a relationship with the children's nanny?" the reporter blurted out as he walked away. "Mrs. Vance claims she discovered an affair between you and that this was the real reason for the separation." Robert stopped, turning slowly. The accusation was as absurd as it was calculated, exactly the kind of story that would attract press and public attention. "That is completely false," he replied with a controlled voice, "and I strongly suggest you verify your sources before repeating slanders. I have all the proof of the true reasons for the separation documented and witnessed." Without waiting for a reply, he headed towards the house, his heart pounding. He needed to call George and his lawyer immediately. The battle he feared had officially begun. When he entered the mansion through the main door, he found Mrs. Eleanor in the hall, visibly agitated. "Boss, thank goodness you're here. There's an important call waiting in the office. It's Mr. Maurice, your lawyer." Robert nodded, heading quickly to the office. "The children?" "They're with Felicity in the playroom, bathing after the outing. They're fine." In the office, Robert closed the door and picked up the phone. "Maurice, I'm here." "Robert, we have a problem." The lawyer's grave voice sounded on the other end of the line. "Christine has filed a request for custody review, alleging that you are emotionally unstable and manipulated the children against her." "What? That's completely absurd." "She's also mentioning an alleged relationship between you and the nanny, suggesting that this influenced the entire situation." Robert closed his eyes, taking a deep breath to control his anger. "So that's why there were reporters at my gate just now?" "Exactly. She's trying to create a media narrative even before the legal process begins. It's a strategy to pressure the judge and tarnish your reputation." "What do we do now?" "First, do not make any statements to the press without consulting me," the lawyer instructed. Second, we need to strengthen our evidence. The recordings are crucial, as are the testimonies of the witnesses to the incident at the party. What about the children? For now, the judge has not authorized supervised visits as she requested, but it's possible that a social worker will be assigned to assess the home. Environment. We need to be prepared for that. After hanging up, Robert remained seated for a few minutes, trying to process everything. The office door opened gently, and Felicity entered, closing it behind her. "The children are clean and having dinner with Mrs. Eleanor," she informed. "What's going on?" Robert hesitated, uncertain how much he should share with her. After all, Felicity was at the center of Christine's new accusations. "Christine is using the media to defend herself," he finally said. "She's giving an interview tomorrow, probably twisting everything that happened." Felicity approached, sitting in the chair opposite him. "There's more, isn't there? I saw your face when you came back from the gate." Robert sighed, realizing there was no point in hiding the truth. "She's claiming she discovered an affair between us, and that was the real reason for the separation." Felicity's face paled, then flushed intensely. "What? But that's a lie, I know, but it's exactly the kind of gossip that makes headlines." Felicity suddenly stood up, walking to the window. "Maybe I should step away for a while. If my presence is being used against you in the custody case." "No," Robert's reply was immediate and firm. "That's exactly what she wants, to separate us, to leave the children vulnerable again. We can't let her manipulate our lives like this." The young woman turned to face him, eyes welling up. "But what if—" "There's no what if, Felicity. You are fundamental to the children's recovery. They trust you, they need you." He hesitated before adding, "We all need you." Those words hung in the air between them, laden with unexpressed meanings. For a moment, the silence in the office was broken only by the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. "What do we do then?" she finally asked. Robert stood up, a new determination in his gaze. "We will fight with the truth. Christine isn't the only one who can use the media to her advantage." Outside the mansion, hidden among the trees beyond the garden, the cameraman accompanying the reporter secretly filmed the silhouette of Robert and Felicity, talking near the office window. The images, out of context, would be exactly the kind of proof Christine needed for her poisonous narrative. Christine's interview aired the following night, exactly as predicted. Robert, George, Felicity, and Mr. Morris, the lawyer, gathered in the mansion's office to watch, while the children slept upstairs, oblivious to the media storm that was brewing. On the television screen, a visibly distraught Christine, wearing sober clothes and discreet makeup, a completely different image from the glamorous socialite everyone knew, dabbed tears with a white handkerchief. "It was a terrible shock to discover," she said, her voice choked with carefully rehearsed emotion. "I loved those children as if they were my own. I tried to discipline them with love to give them structure after the loss of their mother." The reporter, Patricia Clark, leaned in with false sympathy. "And when did you realize there was something between your husband and the nanny?" Christine sighed dramatically. "The signs were there, but I didn't want to see them. The late meetings, the glances, the way he always defended her when I tried to set boundaries with the children." "Absurd," Felicity exclaimed, indignant. "How can she invent so many lies?" "It was predictable," George commented, taking notes. "She's using the classic technique of completely inverting the narrative." On screen, Christine continued her performance. "When I confronted Robert, he was furious. That's when I realized I needed proof. I started recording their behavior, how they conspired behind my back." "The recordings your ex-husband presented against you?" the reporter questioned. "Exactly," Christine smiled sadly. "He used my own recordings, edited them, and presented them as if they were his. He's a powerful man with many resources. I was just a wife trying to save her marriage." Robert turned off the television, unable to continue watching that farce. "Enough. I've seen enough." "This is pure defamation," Mr. Maurice, the lawyer, stated, adjusting his glasses with indignation. "We have solid grounds to sue not only Christine, but also the network for not adequately verifying the allegations." "The problem is that this is exactly what she wants," George mused. More media attention, more confusion. While we fight this story, she gains time to build her defense in the custody case. "And what do you suggest?" Robert questioned, frustration evident in his voice. "A two-pronged strategy," the investigator replied. "First, a calculated legal response. Second, our own media operation." Felicity, who had remained silent, absorbing the shock of being publicly defamed, finally spoke. "The children will eventually see or hear something. How do we protect them from this?" The genuine concern in her voice deeply touched Robert. Even being personally attacked, her first thought was for the well-being of Beatrice and Luke. "We have to be honest with them, to the extent they can understand," he replied, "and reinforce that they are safe, that nothing will separate them from us." That night after the meeting, Robert found Felicity on the balcony watching the stars. Her expression was that of someone carrying an immense weight on her shoulders. "I can't stop thinking about the children," she said when she felt him approach. "They've been through so much." "I know," Robert replied, stopping beside her, "but they are stronger than we imagine. And they have us." Felicity turned to face him, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "Robert, maybe I really should step away for a while. Not for me, but for you. If I leave the scene, Christine loses part of her narrative." "And gets exactly what she wants," he retorted, moving closer. "Felicity, don't you see? If you leave, she wins. She manages to separate our family, leave the children vulnerable again." The word family hung between them, laden with meaning. Felicity averted her gaze. "But we're not a family, not really. I'm the nanny. You're my boss?" Robert took a deep breath, feeling they had reached a decisive moment. "Is that what you really think, after everything we've been through together?" Before she could answer, they heard a cry from upstairs. "Daddy! Nanda!" It was Luke's voice, in a panic. Both ran into the house and up the stairs in seconds, reaching the boy's room. They found him sitting on the bed, eyes wide with fear. "What is it, my love?" Felicity asked, sitting beside him and stroking his hair. "She was here," the little boy sobbed. "Stepmother Christine. She was looking at me through the window." Robert immediately went to the window, which was closed and locked as it should be. He opened it and examined the exterior. Luke's room was on the second floor, with no easy access from outside. "It must have been a nightmare, son," he said, trying to reassure him, although a shiver of concern ran down his spine. "It wasn't a dream," Luke insisted, clinging to Felicity's hand. "She said she was going to take me away, that she was going to separate me from you." Felicity exchanged a worried look with Robert. Nightmares about Christine had decreased in recent weeks, but this one seemed different, more vivid. "No one is taking you anywhere," she assured, hugging the boy. "We are here to protect you." "Promise you won't leave, Nanda," Luke pleaded, his little eyes fixed on her. The question hit Felicity hard, especially after the conversation she had just had with Robert on the balcony. She hesitated for an instant, then replied firmly, "I promise, Luke. I'm not going anywhere." Robert, observing the scene, felt a mixture of relief and determination. That small moment had decided something fundamental. No matter what Christine tried, they would face it, together. After Luke finally fell back asleep, with Felicity softly singing his favorite lullaby, the two adults quietly left the room. "I'll check the security system," Robert said, "and ask the guard to do an extra round of the perimeter." "Do you think she could actually have been here?" Felicity asked, concern evident in her voice. "Not from outside the window. It's physically impossible without equipment. But I don't doubt she's lurking around the property, trying to find a loophole in our security." As he went downstairs to check the security cameras, Robert received a message from George. "We have a problem. Christine has hired private investigators to follow you and Felicity. They are probably monitoring the house. Be careful what you do and say. You might be filmed." The message confirmed his suspicions. Christine was, in fact, trying to collect evidence to support her false narrative. The next morning, Mr. Maurice arrived early at the mansion with a detailed plan for a legal counterattack. As they discussed in the office, Mrs. Eleanor rushed in. "Boss, there's a court officer at the gate. Says he needs to deliver some documents to you and Miss Felicity." Robert and Maurice exchanged worried glances. "Let him in," the lawyer instructed. Minutes later, both examined the official documents. Christine had secured an emergency hearing with the family court judge and was requesting temporary custody of the children, alleging a morally inappropriate environment due to the supposed relationship between Robert and Felicity. "This is ridiculous," Robert exclaimed, throwing the papers onto the table. "She mistreated my children. We have proof, witnesses." "She's playing dirty," Mr. Maurice commented, carefully reading the documents. "Look here. She's using statements from anonymous sources who supposedly worked in the house and witnessed inappropriate behavior." "What sources? That's invented." "Probably. But the judge scheduled the hearing for tomorrow morning. We have little time to prepare our defense." Felicity, who had remained silent, finally spoke. "What if I testify? Tell everything I saw, what she did to the children." "You are a key witness," Mr. Maurice agreed. "But Christine will try to discredit your testimony, alleging personal motivations due to the supposed relationship." "So what do we do?" she asked, frustration evident in her voice. It was at that moment that Robert had an idea. "What if it's not just us? What if we have an army of witnesses?" He picked up the phone and dialed quickly. "Valerie, it's Robert Miller. Remember when you said I could count on you if I needed a testimony? Well, that time has come." In the following hours, the mansion's phone did not stop ringing. Robert contacted all the guests from the fateful charity event, businessmen, politicians, respected journalists, asking them to attend the hearing or send sworn statements about what they witnessed. Meanwhile, George mobilized his team to locate and interview former household staff who might have witnessed Christine's mistreatment of the children. By nightfall, the mansion had transformed into an operations center. Mr. Maurice and 2 assistants organized documents and prepared the legal strategy. George coordinated the information arriving from his team of investigators. Mrs. Eleanor, determined to help, had prepared detailed depositions about Christine's behavior throughout the marriage. Amidst all this agitation, Felicity found a moment to be alone with the children, reading stories in the library as she did every night. It was a sacred ritual, an island of normalcy in the midst of the storm. Robert, passing by the half-open door, paused to observe the scene. Luke nestled in Felicity's lap, Beatrice leaning on her shoulder, both completely absorbed in the story she told with different voices for each character. The love that united that small trio was almost tangible, a force that no lie from Christine could destroy. It was then that he knew, with absolute certainty, that they would do anything to keep that family together. Because that's what they were now, a family, built not by blood or legal papers, but by love and trust forged in the adversities they faced together. Later, when the children were already asleep, and the house finally fell silent, Robert found Felicity in the library where she was tidying the storybooks. "How are you feeling for tomorrow?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Nervous, but trying not to show it," she replied. "Beatrice asked me if they would have to see their stepmother. I said I didn't know, but that we would be with them the whole time. The judge might want to speak with them separately," Robert explained, "but Mr. Morris thinks it's unlikely at this initial stage, and Dr. Martha will be there to give her professional opinion on their emotional state." Felicity nodded, placing the last book on the shelf. When she turned, she noticed Robert observing her intently. "What is it?" "I was thinking about everything we've been through, about how essential you've become to us." He took a few steps towards her. "On the balcony last night, you said we're not a real family." She lowered her eyes. "Robert, you know it's complicated." "Is it?" He was close now, close enough to smell her soft perfume. "It seems pretty simple to me. You love the children, they love you, and I—" The words hung between them, laden with possibilities. Felicity raised her eyes, meeting his, allowing herself for the first time to acknowledge the feelings that had grown between them. "It's not the right time," she whispered. "Not while Christine is using this against us, against the children." Robert sighed, recognizing the wisdom in her words. "You're right. But when all this is over—" "When all this is over," she completed with a shy smile, "we'll have time to figure out what comes next." That silent promise was enough for now. Together, they walked out of the library, ready to face what the next day would bring. The morning of the hearing dawned sunny, contrasting with the tension hanging over the family. Robert and Felicity paid special attention to making breakfast seem as normal as possible for the children, who would stay at the mansion under Mrs. Eleanor's care and with the company of a psychologist assistant to Dr. Martha. "You'll be back soon, right?" Luke asked, firmly holding Felicity's hand as he said goodbye. "Before you know it," she promised, kissing his forehead, "and when we get back, we'll make that chocolate cake you love." "With double frosting?" The boy's eyes sparkled. "With double frosting," she confirmed with a smile. Beatrice, always more perceptive, approached her father. "It's about her, isn't it? About stepmother Christine." Robert knelt to be at his daughter's eye level. "It is, my love, but don't worry. We're taking care of everything so she can never hurt you again." "I'm not afraid of her," Beatrice declared with surprising determination for her 8 years. "Not anymore. Dr. Martha said that people like her only have power if we give it to them." Robert hugged his daughter, moved by her strength. "You are very brave, you know. Just like your mother." In court, a surprise awaited Christine. Instead of a quick and discreet process as she expected, she found the corridors crowded with witnesses willing to testify in favor of Robert and Felicity. Former household staff, the guests from the charity event, even the mayor of Aspen Heights was present, ready to testify about Robert's exemplary character as a father. When Christine entered the courtroom, impeccably dressed and accompanied by her pompous lawyer, her face paled upon seeing the number of people present to support her ex-husband. "What is this?" she whispered to Arthur Maxwell, her lawyer. "It was supposed to be a private hearing." "Apparently your ex-husband mobilized a lot of people," he replied, visibly uncomfortable with the situation. Judge Helen Rivers, known for her perceptiveness and focus on the well-being of children, carefully studied the documents presented by both parties before beginning the hearing. "This court's highest priority is the best interests of the children Beatrice and Luke Miller," she declared. "I see serious accusations from both sides here, and I intend to hear all relevant witnesses before making any decision regarding temporary custody." Christine was the first to present her case, repeating the same allegations from the television interview, now in legal terms. Her lawyer presented blurry and distant photographs of Robert and Felicity talking closely, as if this constituted proof of an inappropriate relationship. When it was Robert's turn, Mr. Morris took a different approach. Instead of directly attacking Christine, he simply presented the evidence. The original, unedited recordings made during the period Robert was in disguise, with precise dates and times, expert testimonies confirming the authenticity of the recordings, sworn statements from more than 20 witnesses who observed Christine's abusive behavior at the charity event. The most impactful, however, was when Felicity took the witness stand. With a calm and firm voice, she described in detail what she had witnessed for months working in the mansion, the constant humiliations, the disproportionate punishments, the fear in the children's eyes. Beatrice stopped eating properly. Luke had nightmares every night. They lived in a constant state of alert, trying to guess what might displease their stepmother, she reported, unable to suppress her emotion. "I did what I could to protect them, to give them some comfort when she wasn't looking." Christine, on the other side of the room, cast furious glances at the nanny, but Felicity continued her account undeterred. "When Mr. Miller returned and revealed he had been observing everything in disguise, my first reaction was relief. Finally, someone could help those children." Christine's lawyer tried to discredit her during cross-examination, repeatedly insinuating an improper relationship with Robert, but Felicity remained firm. "My relationship with Mr. Miller has always been professional. My priority has always been the children, their well-being and safety, and that's why I'm here today facing these false and humiliating accusations, because those children deserve to grow up without fear." The hearing lasted for hours, with witness after witness corroborating Robert and Felicity's version. Dr. Martha's testimony, detailing the children's psychological state when she began treating them, and the progress they made after. Christine's departure was particularly convincing. By the end of the day, Judge Rivers seemed to have heard enough. "This court will not make a hasty decision regarding the custody of these children," she declared. "However, based on the evidence presented today, I rule that temporary custody remains with the father, Robert Miller, and deny Mrs. Christine Vance's request for supervised visits at this time." A murmur of approval ran through the room. The judge continued. "Furthermore, I order a full investigation into the allegations of emotional abuse against the children. Until the conclusion of this investigation, Mrs. Vance must maintain a distance of at least 100 yards from the Miller residence and the children." Christine stood up furious. "This is absurd. These people are all lying. He bought them off." "Mrs. Vance," the judge's voice cut through the air like a blade, "control yourself or you will be removed from the room. Your current conduct is not helping your case." Defeated in this initial battle, Christine left the courtroom with her head down, followed by her visibly disappointed lawyer. In the corridor, journalists tried to get statements, but she passed quickly, her face hidden by large, dark sunglasses. Robert and Felicity, on the other hand, were greeted with hugs and words of support from the many people who had come to help them. Mr. Maurice seemed satisfied with the outcome. "It's only the first step," the lawyer warned, "but an important step." The judge clearly saw through Christine's unfounded accusations. "What happens now?" Felicity asked. "The investigation ordered by the judge will take a few weeks. Social workers, psychologists, interviews with the children in a controlled environment. But based on what I saw today, I am confident in the result." When they finally left the courthouse, Robert and Felicity found George waiting in the parking lot, a discreet smile on his face. "I have news," the investigator said. "Christine just fired her lawyer in the parking lot. Apparently, he advised her to drop the custody case, saying she has no chance after what happened today." "Do you think she'll give up?" Robert asked, opening the car door for Felicity. George shrugged. "Hard to say. People like Christine don't usually accept defeat easily, but she certainly realized it won't be as easy as she imagined." On the drive back to the mansion, a comfortable silence settled between Robert and Felicity. The battle was not completely won, but they had overcome the first major obstacle together. "Do you know what Luke asked me this morning?" Felicity commented, breaking the silence. "What?" "Chocolate cake with double frosting. I promised we'd make it when we got back." Robert smiled, taking her hand for a moment. "Then we'd better not disappoint the boy." When they arrived at the mansion, they were greeted by Luke and Beatrice running to the car, eager for news and hugs. Mrs. Eleanor and Dr. Martha's assistant followed closely behind, relieved smiles on their faces. "So, is she not going to bother us anymore?" Beatrice asked directly, always the more pragmatic one. Robert hugged his daughter. "For now, no, and we're working to make sure it stays that way." "Can we make the cake now?" Luke pulled Felicity's hand, eager to claim the promise. "Of course we can," she replied with a smile. "And you'll be my special assistant." As they headed to the kitchen, Robert observed the natural interaction between Felicity and his children. No matter what Christine tried, what society thought, or what the future held, those three people were his world now, his family rebuilt, from the ashes of a toxic relationship. Hours later, with the children finally in bed after an impromptu celebration filled with chocolate cake, Robert found Felicity on the mansion balcony, observing the starry mountain sky. "Thank you for today," he said, stopping beside her. "Your testimony was crucial." "I just told the truth," she replied simply. "The truth isn't always so clear or courageous." Felicity turned to him, her face gently illuminated by the light coming from inside the house. "What did George mean by people like Christine don't accept defeat easily? Do you think she might still try something?" Robert sighed. "Honestly, I don't know. But we are prepared now, stronger, united." She nodded, looking back at the stars. "You know, when I came to work here, I never imagined my life would change so much in such a short time." "For the better, I hope," he said, risking a half smile. "Different," she replied, also smiling. "More complicated in some aspects, clearer in others." They stood in silence for a few moments, enjoying the tranquility of the night. Then, with an almost imperceptible movement, their hands met on the balcony railing. Not a dramatic romantic gesture, but a simple touch of recognition, of connection. Remember what we talked about in the library? Robert asked softly. About when all this is over? Felicity nodded, her fingers lightly intertwining with his. I remember. I don't know exactly when that will be, he continued. It might take weeks, months, but I want you to know that for me you are already part of this family. No matter what happens with the process, with Christine, with anything else. She turned to face him, her eyes bright with emotion. For me too. You three became my family when I didn't even realize I was looking for one. The moment was interrupted by the sound of small footsteps on the balcony. Luke appeared at the door, rubbing his eyes sleepily. I had a bad dream, the boy murmured. Felicity immediately knelt, opening her arms. Come here, little one. Luke ran into her embrace while Robert knelt beside the two. Do you want to tell us about the dream? The boy shook his head negatively, snuggling closer to Felicity. I don't remember it clearly. I just wanted to know if you were still here. We are here, Robert assured, stroking his son's hair. And we always will be. As Robert led Luke back to bed, with Felicity following close behind, none of them noticed the solitary figure observing the scene from the road, protected by the darkness of the night. Christine lowered her binoculars, her face an unreadable mask of conflicting emotions. For a moment she remained motionless, as if fighting an internal battle. Then, slowly, she put the binoculars back in her bag, got into her car, and drove away. Not with the fury from before, but with a contemplative silence that suggested, perhaps, the first glimmer of understanding that some battles cannot be won by force. In the illuminated mansion on the hilltop, a newly formed family found its way to healing and a new beginning, protected not only by security systems and judicial decisions, but by the genuine love they had built together through adversity, the kind of fortress no external storm could tear down. And as Robert and Felicity watched Luke finally fall asleep peacefully, their gazes met over the boy's head, sealing a silent promise of a shared future, no matter what challenges they might still face. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope Robert, Felicity, and the children's story has touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it here by clicking on the left. If you enjoyed this narrative about protection, courage, and true love, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the family bonds that define us. What would you do in Robert's place? Would you have the same courage? Leave your comments below and share your thoughts. We look forward to reading your opinions.